Got a lot of good stuff to talk about on a interesting Friday, to say the least. First time home alone in the new house. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But for now, I've got a show to do. Got to make sure to spread the word out before I really get started here. There. Let's get everything up on screen. So I finally got some guests lined up. For now, I've got a couple guests a week out. I'll tell you more towards the end of the show. Let's get the right setup here. There. Now it's time to get on with the show today. First off, we're going to start off with Aaron Mate of the Gray Zone. He got smeared by Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks. And this video comes from members only segment of their content.
He said Aaron Mate.
Oh, Aaron Mate lighting. Oh, Aaron Mate. Oh, everyone cares what Aaron Mate has to say, right? The guy who denies that Syrian children were killed with chemical attacks. Yeah.
And gets
Fuck Aaron
paid by
Mate.
the-
Yeah, fuck you.
Gets
Anyway,
paid
let's
by the
move on. Let's
Russians.
end the freaking pod. I can't.
Okay, see, that's what happened.
I can't stand that guy, and I can't stand the very intentional disinformation they put out there in regard to disgusting dictators around the world. The very people they seem to be working for, to be quite honest with you. Let's move on.
All right, we're done.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
So in this clip, you'll see Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian go to the lazy smear attacks on Aaron Mate, who is a award-winning journalist who does real on-the-ground work, unlike these two who sit in their Los Angeles studio and have steadily moved to just being another version of MSNBC. There's a bit more to it, though. Mate in this tweet says, "The only state I've worked for is Qatar. As a Al Jazeera producer, I've never worked for or been paid by Russia or any other state. By the way, when it comes to paid shilling for disgusting people who kill children, Anna Kasparian doesn't need to look far." So you'll see this video he posted about her cozying up to a war criminal, Madeleine Albright. Then he clears up another one of their libelous smears. Chemical attacks. I've covered one of the biggest pro-war deceptions since Iraq. the staged incident in Dalma, and the OPCW cover-up scandal that exposed it. Doing Trump's bidding, journalists like Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian have completely ignored it. When Cenk Uygur opens up by saying, "Aaron Mate yelled at me," I think that he is referring to this tweet from me below. So as you'll see in the tweet below, he responded to a really shitty tweet where Cenk Uygur made this Israel and Palestine issue about religion when that isn't the case. So that may have been a motivated attack because he replied to Uygur saying, "My God tells me this is the worst tweet of all time." He definitely wasn't wrong. And lastly, Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian are free to have their strong feelings about me and act them out on TV, but they're not entitled to lie about me with claims that I am paid by Russia and dictators and that I deny chemical attacks on children. That's McCarthyite trash and libelist. And that right there is why no serious person on the left should be watching TYT. It's garbage. And it's a thing that people who are newer to the left, like me, don't have to deal with. Because pretty much anyone who's probably been part of this online left community, especially around 2016, you'll know that there were a lot more people who had to graduate from watching TYT. Everything that people say is confirmed that the network really went downhill after Jimmy Dore left just after 2016. To be honest, TYT wasn't, I didn't even know what it was when I first got introduced to the left. The first person who really brought me in was Kyle Kulinski. And nowadays I've evolved beyond him. But then one day I decided to give TYT a chance and see what they were about. Sometime last year. And they pretty much just, the whole show just revolved around Donald Trump, like you would see on CNN, MSNBC. Then my thought was, after a couple segments, I thought this was supposed to be part of the left media space. So after that, I never went back to, never gave it a second thought. Time and time again, they've proven to be a fraudulent part of the left. They've had a downfall that's been going on for over these 4+ years, even more. There were people that said that their live streams will get 25 to 35,000 views, and now they only get about 1/10 of that number. And people who have seen that Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, they're no longer viewed as good faith actors who are in the best interest of the left. They've taken establishment money. They've tried to cozy up to the DNC, but they get rejected for media coverage each time. And now they're pretty much a joke of a network, which is largely non-serious content. A slightly more left version of MSNBC. They keep you... They're just designed to keep you sheep-herded towards Democratic Party. Cenk Uygur really talks out of both sides of his ass, especially when it came to force the vote. He was against it when the movement first demanded it around the House Speaker vote. But then he's suddenly for it conveniently when it comes to matters where the establishment tries to push something through. I'm sure as time goes on, be able to tear into TYT with further and greater depth. But I've got a really good clip. It's from Roger Waters from the band Pink Floyd. Last night he was on Katie Halper's show. And this was a great 2-minute video of him going in better on TYT than I could.
Wow.
Yeah.
What? Do you want to comment?
Yeah, sure.
Fucking stupid fat prick. It's just as long as they're throwing the F word around. I mean, and that woman, I haven't the faintest idea who she is, but she obviously can't read or write. All you have to do is a little bit of research to understand that all the research that has gone into the OPCW debacle and the huge story that is OPCW, sorry, and the huge story that lies behind that has been completely ignored by the mainstream media because it's inconvenient. And when you actually look at the work that Aaron Hunter, for a start, but Grayzone in general do in trying to bring us, we the people, the truth about what's actually going on in our world, to listen to that garbage and disgusting and foul-mouthed, I have to say. That young lady, I hesitate to call her a young lady. She's clearly not in prime abuse, but that's neither here nor there. But the fact is, how dare she pontificate on some tinsel fucking show like the Fabulous Young Turks or whatever they call it? Who the fuck are they? I mean, to claim that she knows that Bashar Assad made a chemical attack to kill his own children or the children of his people is beyond condemnable. Is that a word? Yes, I shouldn't really be expressing any aggressiveness. It's so pitiful and pathetic. I am not going to waste my borrow on whatever the young fucks are, because that was disgusting.
Yeah.
And I've heard bad things about them for a long time, but they've ought to be thinking young people who have an alternative. They're not.
Yeah,
they are the status quo bolstering what the great American empire believes, and they and obviously they're great supporters of regime change in Syria.
Okay, that was Roger Waters going in on the young fucks, the yucky turds, better than I could. Once again, when it comes down to it, they're going to be the ones parroting CIA talking points, while the people at the gray zone, Benjamin Norton, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, they're going to be the ones doing the real coverage, revealing what's really going on in the imperialistic state. And that sums up why TYT is fucking garbage, man. Let's shift into Obama. This ought to be good. Former President Obama said that institutional constraints.
Former President Obama said that institutional constraints prevented him from speaking out on the killings of Black Americans during his time in the White House.
Yeah, it prevented him from speaking out about killings of Black Americans during his time in the White House. Obama's foundation, My Brother's Keeper Alliance, on Wednesday hosted a forum during which the former president participated in a panel discussion on the activism sparked by last year's police killing of George Floyd, an armed black man. Obama noted that there were several high-profile killings of Black Americans, including Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Alton Sterling, during his time in office, but said he didn't want to interfere with the Justice Department's investigations into the cases. I did not want to endanger their capacity to go and investigate and potentially charge perpetrators, which meant I could not come down or appear to come down decisively in the terms of guilt or innocence, Obama said. The former president added that he didn't have the majorities needed to make significant push for social justice. Keep in mind, 2012, I won, but I didn't win congressmen, and we didn't win a bunch of governorships back. We didn't win a bunch of state legislators back, Obama said. And so all the reform initiatives we were coming up with and the ideas that had been generated, we weren't able to translate into as bold a set of initiatives as I would have wanted. The forum came after the one-year anniversary of Floyd, who was murdered by then Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. Floyd's family on Tuesday was in Washington, D.C., pleading with lawmakers to pass the Police Reform Act named for him. Floyd's death, among others, led to nationwide protest over social justice and police reform. Gotta go in on this quote here in a moment. First off, during the Obama presidency, both his terms, especially that second one, he proved that he was neutral. In fact, he went out of his way to be neutral after winning that first campaign where people fell for the hope and progress. Virtually every leftist that was able to vote back then fell for it. I did. And if there's one thing I do regret is not becoming more politically engaged sooner. Otherwise, I definitely wouldn't have voted for Obama's second term had I opened up to what was really happening more. But there's so many people who don't have the ability or time to be connected to what's really happening and find a narrative and different perspectives outside of mainstream media. Going back to this quote, I did not in any way want to endanger their capacity to go in, investigate, and potentially charge perpetrators, which meant I could not come down or appear to come down decisively in terms of guilt or innocence, Obama said. This was clear for each of those high-profile shootings that happened under Barack Obama. Y'all got to remember that Black Lives Matter started under him, and that during the midst of those protests in Ferguson and Baltimore, he called those protesters thugs. So even that wasn't neutral. He has always sided with the oppressor. At the end of the day, and when you hear this quote, do you really think with the way the criminal justice system protects the police that they would need Obama to help them by not making a declarative statement? The fact is, even if Barack Obama made a strong definitive statement against the police each of those times, he talked about these instances of high-profile killings of Black Americans. Even then, they have a way of ignoring all the outside noise. And they rarely ever come up with the outcome that gives the justice that is deserved. Then you've also got more of the bullshit that he didn't have the numbers when he spent the first couple of years before getting slaughtered in the midterms. One of the worst that you'll see by fucking around and not following through on his campaign. Even reasonable but still not good enough watered down proposals of what he originally ran on in 2012 or 2008. Whenever Barack Obama finds himself in the media, it's always because he's the king of excuses. And the one that's always at the top of his list is that I didn't have the numbers. I'm sorry, I couldn't follow through on this more transformative reform that I'm lying to you about. and that I never was going to plan to do. He has still had so many people thinking fondly of him, when the truth is, his failure led to Donald Trump. His vice president's failure that is taking place with him as president is likely to lead to a more competent, possibly even more fascist version of Donald Trump. And they're going to leave us with an alternative that won't even be good enough to get people to energize to vote against this next fascist Republican in 2024. The narrative has to be reset each time we got the opportunity to. When Barack Obama first took office, he admitted Ronald Reagan was more liberal than him. I wonder what the outrage from liberals would have been like. We won't really know the real-time reaction to that, because that was just before social media really took off. And can't forget that Barack Obama's never been the pro-black candidate. In fact, he, just before taking office, he also admitted that he couldn't be just the president of black people. In fact, Joe Biden's vice president, Kamala Harris, broke out of similar sentiments as well. They don't have the best interest of black Americans, Hispanic people as well, other people of color in the working class. He's proven it time and time again. And the top neoliberal figures of the Democratic Party are very dangerous, because they always placate you into taking less and to stop demanding more. Before I finish up with this, just to prove to you that, to further elaborate on why he wasn't the pro-black candidate, he also told them to pull their pants up. He was the face to keep people in line. And as I've said previously, the goal of the neoliberals like Barack Obama, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, is to get you distracted and to not fight for real change. And this once again goes into Barack Obama's favorite line of distraction, of not having enough Democrats to get their change through. Although if you keep your memory consistent, you'll see that they failed to follow through on anything when they had the supermajority. And even when they have slight majority, like right now, they'll continue to use the same excuse of not being able to follow through on their campaign in order to kick the can down the road, keep you engaged with the two-party system. But they fail because people get frustrated and give up with them. And a lot of everything is repeating itself in the third term Obama with Joe Biden. Yesterday, Obama, the former DNC chair, Tom Perez, joined an anti-union law firm. This one is from the Daily Poster by Andrew Perez and Walker Bragman. Former Obama Labor Secretary Tom Perez announced on Thursday that he's joining the law firm Venable LLP, whose website boasts that its lawyers regularly counsel and train clients on union avoidance. Perez, who was the DNC chair until January, joins a growing number of Obama officials who cashed in on their government experience with jobs at union-busting companies. That list includes press secretaries Jay Carney, who became the top flack at Amazon, and Robert Gibbs, who spent several years as a top flack at Uber for McDonald's. Obama's senior advisor David Plouffe served as a policy chief at Uber, while former senior advisor Valerie Jarrett has a board seat at Lyft. Rather than avoid issues he oversaw as labor secretary, Perez said in a press release he will be working specifically on those issues. Venable's attorneys are at the forefront of helping clients navigate dynamic regulatory policy and labor and employment issues, Perez said in Venable's press release announcing his hiring. I look forward to joining them in this important work. Michael Volpe, a co-chair of Venable's labor and employment practice group, said that Perez's unique background and insights on workplace matters will be invaluable to our clients. Volpe's firm biography notes that he has broad experience representing corporate interest in union organizing and campaigns. All right, focusing on that line right there. Tom Perez is working against the interest of the people. He's there to protect corporations, prevent workers from getting their rights, their fair rights. Coordinating the employer's 5-month anti-union campaign. Perez served as Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights under President Barack Obama before serving as Obama's Labor Secretary from 2013 to 2017. Later, he served as DNC chair after Obama and now President Biden reportedly worked the phones to help him propel to victory over progressive favorite Keith Ellison, who is now Minnesota's Attorney General. Earlier this year, Perez applauded Biden's choice for Labor Secretary Marty Walsh, tweeting, "America needs a Secretary of Labor who will fight tirelessly to empower American workers and labor movement. A union member and champion of workers' rights, Marty Walsh is the right person for the job." Now, months later, Perez is joining a law firm that openly helps corporate America crush unions. Need I remind you that the Democratic Party is also a corporate party? In this past election, Wall Street gave more money to Joe Biden, not Donald Trump. And Joe Biden is not going to undo that famous tax cut of Donald Trump's in a way that it should be done. Once again, ever since the most populist president that the United States has had in FDR, the tax rates have been pretty much cut in half for millionaires. And the only real plan that Joe Biden has is to choose the middle road from the Obama administration on the tax rates. So let's get into this next section. Fighting to protect union busting activities. Venable's website says it lobbying thrives on its deep bench and legal strength, which complement our reputation and relationships in Washington, D.C., giving clients a seat at the table and access to our powerful government work. The firm's lobbying clients have included Lockheed Martin, Citadel, American Airlines, and the Self-Driving Coalition for Safer Streets, which represents rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft. Venable regularly submits comments on behalf of their clients to regulatory agencies, including the Labor Department. In 2011, Venable submitted a comment opposing the Obama Labor Department's proposed persuader rule, which designed to require employers to more thoroughly disclose their spending on anti-union consultants. On behalf of the Coalition for a Democratic Workplace, a front for corporate lobbying groups like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the National Association of Manufacturers, Venable warned that the Labor Department's persuader rule will deny employers the needed legal advice to communicate with employees both before and during periods of union organizing, collective bargaining, and strikes. The rule was finally implemented in 2016, but it was blocked by a federal district court judge. When Donald Trump took office in 2017, his administration quickly moved to rescind it. Protecting the Right to Organize Act, a landmark bill proposed by Democrats, would codify the 2016 Persuader Rule. This will take me into a different point now, when liberals were fear-mongering about the Supreme Courts, and that being the reason that you had to vote for Joe Biden. At the time, it felt like one of the better arguments that they would have for that. But it took me a bit to think about it, and I've said part of why I disagree with it. And it's just simply because I don't believe Joe Biden would put actual liberals in the court. He's going to choose slight conservatives at best, somewhat conservative on average, or maybe even nearly as far right as the Donald Trump Supreme Court picks. But I think the end of this article illustrates my other point about why the Supreme Court vote doesn't mean anything. Sure, I think that the Supreme Court, they'll bend more on social issues. Even the conservative justices that are in place, even one of the Trump appointments, Neil Gorsuch, has bent on social issues at times, as we saw last year when they took votes on issues. The other side of it is that they won't be pro-workers regardless. The Supreme Court is always going to side with the corporations, and just about any presidential vote isn't going to matter. Even someone who is actually a bit liberal and not someone who's right of the center, even if you're a more left-leaning liberal president rather than your average right-wing liberal, at the end of the day, when it comes to workers' rights, you're working against the courts. And that's going to be part of the struggle to get more unions going. So even if we got to the point where we could get some unions going at places like Amazon, Walmart, Target, Kroger, and strengthen some of the current existing unions that do exist at the rare few at the bigger chains, these corporations are going to ask the courts to bail them out. And even if the Democrats listen to us on packing the courts, they would just have more people in there ready to protect corporations. And that's not how we should go about it. What we really need to do in the future, while expanding the court in the right way would help, it's putting term limits on the Supreme Court And as I go on the show, you'll see I'm going to advocate a lot for situations where we de-emphasize the impact of Congress and Senate. So, for example, when it comes to the Supreme Court, I think people should be able to vote to confirm justices. I do not want that to be in the fate of like 400 plus people in House and 100 people in Senate. I believe that people should be able to vote on the issues that come through Congress. I do not believe that one of the problems with our political system is we've left it at the fate of a small elite class. And I would like to see people who are interested in making it a direct democracy where when these lawmakers put bills through, the people get to vote for them. And it will be what matters most. I do think that Senate and House members will still serve purpose, at least with the language of these bills. I do think that part still is why they would have purpose. Because I think that is some complex language that you don't completely understand until you really start to regularly read through bills. And that's another part as well. People would need ample amount of time to read through any bill that they would vote on in a direct democracy. And we would also need to come up with a system where they can repeal parts of a bill. If they see something that's really negative about a bill, I think if enough people bring up complaints in like a comment section, they should have to remove that part completely before a vote. I know what my idea of a better political system would require a lot more work. But the extra work would be worth it in the long run because people would constantly have a say and make sure people live up to their campaign platforms of who they vote for. And that would be the type of political system that I would strive for. Until there's a lot of rigging that needs to get undone before we get to the point where we could even imagine the potential of a political system which takes away the fate, leaving your fate up to a few hundred people and making sure you constantly have a say in policy that they want to pass. All right, next is the part of the show where I get that sports crossover in. So, Game 3 between the Celtics and Nets is about to be tonight. And Kyrie Irving had some comments before heading back to Boston for the first time in front of fans.
I know when you were in Boston, you had good things to say about the crowds there and the feeling of playing at the Garden. What do you expect now that there are going to actually be people there in the building as opposed to last time?
I mean, it's not my first time being an opponent in Boston, so I'm just looking forward to competing with my teammates, and hopefully we just keep it strictly basketball. There's no belligerence or any racism going on, subtle racism, and people yelling shit from the crowd. But even if it is, it's part of the nature of the game, and we're just gonna focus on what we can control.
Is it something you've experienced in Boston before?
I'm not the only one that could attest to this, but it's just, it won't. It is what it is.
Perk, we have to talk about his comments about coming.
So when we get into Boston racism, that has been one of the two main faces for where racism takes place in the NBA, the other being Utah. I'll share a bit on that soon. But the problem is with Boston is I think that it's kind of deductive when it gets talked about at times because we just see a lot of people reduce it to KKK, and it leads to a lot of unserious conversation in that regard, when the reality is Boston is in Massachusetts, one of the safest blue states, and we have to stop viewing racism just as something that KKK types do. Boston, just like almost every other major city in the country, is liberal. We need to realize that liberal racism is just as much of a big thing as the conservative racism. And so many NBA players get to experience both sides of it. Kyrie Irving's teammate Tristan Thompson earlier today, he went on to talk about how he experienced subtle racism back when he was on the Cleveland Cavaliers, but now doesn't have that issue now that he is part of the Boston Celtics. And when you see the reaction from Kyrie Irving, you would know that he has experienced both the positive and negative end of the racism you'll see in Boston. What often gets left out of the discussion is, regardless of how blue of a major city you have, you're always going to have those more conservative surrounding areas, even just in your suburbs, which are still connected to your metropolitan area. So the point is, that there's a lot of people out there who are ignorant to the instances of the liberal racism that take place in our society. Liberals are only noticing the conservative racism and are either come to defense of people who are liberals who have moments of being racist. And as you'll see, there is some examples of people denying the experience that you'll see with racism. Don't forget, we can't just reduce it to a Boston or Utah thing. This has the potential to happen everywhere. Even New York. Even Los Angeles. Let's hear what let's get into the quote from Danny Ainge. So this came from a radio appearance on 98.5 The Sports Hub. I think that we take those kind of things seriously. I never heard of that from any player I've ever played with in my 26 years in Boston. I've never heard that before from Kyrie. I talked to him quite a bit, so I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter. We're just playing basketball. Players can say what they want. Ooh. Look at how tone deaf those comments are. But to give you a bit of background on Danny Ainge, he went to college at BYU. So that's going to shape his perspective in a negative way. And even if he didn't mean to be tone deaf with those comments, he at best was just ignorant. When you look at the Boston Celtics and all the recent draft picks they've accumulated, the times that they've had cap space to sign some big name free agents, there's also been quite a few free agents who have passed up wanting to sign there, tell their agents and teams to not deal with Boston. And I point out Danny Ainge, and quotes like these are why he's had to build more and more internally and settle for the second and third tier, option C, option B, and option D when it comes to bringing in big name free agents. When you look at who the Boston Celtics have brought in via free agency, Al Horford, Gordon Hayward, and Kemba Walker. Those were not option A guys for Boston. The guys that they really wanted, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis. I'm sure they would have liked to be in on LeBron James as well. There's a reason why they've been passed up. And it matters who the people are in charge of these NBA teams. And when you've got someone like Danny Ainge, who is not cognizant of the issues that go on in Boston, a place that he's been there for 26 years. How does he ignore all those moments of the home fans and the countless instances of racial slurs being shouted at opposing players? Team culture matters when it comes to your favorite sports franchise having a chance for success. When your coach, your GM are more insensitive to the issues of race, then it makes sense why the Boston Celtics have not become a true top-tier team. Then when you look at other teams who are building a real culture sensitive to relationships with their players, the issues that matter to them, they're figuring out ways to be successful. And the first team at one of the best cultures that currently exist in the NBA is the Denver Nuggets. Just ask Austin Rivers. He's only been on the team for about a month, and this is the most accepted that he's ever been in any team that he's played for in his career. Let's get into that story that came from Salt Lake City real quick. Andy Larson with the tweet. This happened to his wife, the wife of Ja Morant. T. Morant said one fan made a sexually explicit remark to his wife Jamie. T. Morant, who was sitting a couple seats over, confronted the man before security de-escalated the situation, ejecting the Jazz fan. According to T. Morant, another Jazz fan told him, "I'll put a nickel in your back and watch you dance, boy." Several Jazz fans who had been enjoying good-spirited trash talk with the Morants and their family friends confronted that fan and alerted security. T. Morant said he was shocked that the Jazz fan who was ejected made such a comment with the man's young daughter by his side. The third fan who was ejected yelled at Jamie Morant, "Shut the fuck up, bitch," T. Morant said. It's unfortunate that we have to deal with these instances so often. And it's honestly worse at the moment because people are just starting to get used to being out back in regular society. Also, Utah is also the main face of racism in the NBA. And the fact that it's really sick what people think is okay to say. They do pay for their seats, and certain instances you're paying even more than the normal playoff rates due to there not being full capacities just yet. But when you go beyond the line of good-spirited trash talk, then that's a major problem. I'm of the frame that when it comes to players, they have to police their own trash talk, which goes beyond the line of that good-spirited. When it comes to fans, however, the fans and security have to police it, and these people have to be better at self-policing themselves and not even think that would be a good thing to say ever. It's not just here, as I said. There's people who are acting out because they haven't been out in regular society for a long time. Also on Wednesday, when Russell Westbrook tried to lead Game 2 of his series against the Philadelphia 76ers, when he was walking through the tunnel at the Wells Fargo Center, some fan poured popcorn on him through the tunnel. And Russell Westbrook has been a wrongful victim of way too many people crossing the line on him. And Russell Westbrook was ready to at least seek out the fan who had did that to him, but he had to be held back by several people in security. And also in New York, a fan sitting courtside at Madison Square Garden tried to pulled his mask down to spit on Trae Young. And unfortunately for that fan, he's lucky that Trae Young is not going to press charges. Once again, just because you get a ticket to these games does not give you the right to cross the line and disrespect players that are playing. Especially when you cross into the line of racism. That's even worse. And that's why I'm doing this segment right now. Because this is one of the purposes of the Rochford Files, is to talk about some sports issues that on the surface may not be political enough for other shows, because my goal is to try to bring in more regular sports fans in order to get them more politically active, more politically engaged like me. From my experience on Twitter, I've been in more of a sports account. Now I've a slightly lean more to be in a political account, but I'll still tweet sports when I feel like it, because that's the thing I'm interested in, and I'm not gonna stop that, because at times you need to decompress from everything that's going on in society and enjoy your hobbies. That's why I think the boycott your hobbies movement, that really started as a counter reaction when Colin Kaepernick protested for police brutality during the national anthem. I caught myself there. Is why it's stupid. It's bad for our mental health to not give ourselves the opportunity to focus on other things from time to time, because this climate is tough on the left most. And if you're just zoned in all the time, then that's not going to help for the moments where we have the opportunity to push forward and make progress. Although there was another, I'm going to go back to a previous incident involving Utah and Russell Westbrook real quick in order to end this out on a slightly more positive note. I'm going back to this article. This happened back in March of 2019 when a Jazz fan, Shane Kiesel, made a racially insensitive remark to Russell Westbrook, telling him to get down on your knees like you used to. Although Shane disputed it, saying to wrap his knees to be better able to play in the game. Whoa, I've never seen that line before. I knew that during that little local television interview that he was on some BS. Or I must have forgotten as well, because that is a pretty cringe-worthy revisement of revisionist experience. But the interesting part is what usually happens to these racists nowadays. He ended up getting fired from his job at Brent Brown Toyota and terminated from a pilot training program with Southwest Airlines. Kiesel said also members of his family were harassed and that he had to alter his driving route, stop using his first name, and install new locks and security cameras at his home. Following that incident, Shane Kiesel tried to seek $68 million in damages, and Jennifer Huff tried to get $32 million. Then we had this Woj bomb that happened yesterday. There's Woj bombs. Then there's just random Woj bombs of randomness, like this. Yesterday, a Utah judge tossed out a $100 million lawsuit against Russell Westbrook and the Utah Jazz, filed by two bands banned from Jazz games after taunts towards Westbrook in a 2019 game per court documents. Shane Kiesel and Jennifer Huff claim defamation and infliction of emotional stress. I think the most absurd part about this is there was a lawyer who was willing to go to bat on this case. It's ridiculous, man. But it also shows how there's stupid parts of the court system as well, because the reason is lawyers can still make money on trying to do these things that get into a dead end. That judge really just came out and said, fuck your white fragility. So the next story I'm getting into is the thing that your average Democrat has really been focused on as of late. This little tweet thread will sum it up. The Senate just blocked debate on the bill to establish a January 6th commission to investigate the attack on the U.S. Capitol. 60 yeses were necessary to end the filibuster, but the final vote tally was 54 to 35. 11 senators were absent for the procedural vote. All Democrats voted yes, and 6 Republicans joined them. And of the 6 GOP senators who voted to proceed on the January 6th commission, all but Portman voted to convict former President Trump for inciting the riot at the U.S. Capitol. The other 2 Senate Republicans who found Trump guilty, Burr and Tomey, were absent. Majority Leader Schumer's response to the failing. Shame on the Republican Party for trying to sweep the horrors of that day under the rug because they're afraid of Donald Trump. As you see, I'm not going to get into the same type of direction that liberals will go with the results of this. Republicans are traitors. They're against the country. No, this isn't going to be my focus, and why I'm going to provide some analysis on it. Once again, January 6th was a display of incompetence by the Capitol Police and the people who stormed the Capitol. The right-wing Capitol Police did this by design, so Democrats could fearmonger about this day and increase the surveillance state. Personally, for me, I think there's far more pressing issues at hand, such as Medicare for All, UBI, reparations, a radical transformation of the police system that goes well beyond the average reform, cancel all student debt, cancel all medical debt, defund the military, defund Pentagon. Those are issues that all matter more right now. But the thing I'm going to get into is the filibuster. And why your average Democrat is such a hypocrite on the filibuster. We tried to make a push for the filibuster when it came to the $15 minimum wage and other things that we wanted to see in the first and only stimulus package that you're going to see in the Biden administration. But there was so much crickets in response to it Or you have a couple people, the traditionalist, even against the interest of many of the people who voted for him, like Joe Biden, has seemingly gave mixed signals on the filibuster, but it feels like he wouldn't be ultimately in favor of changing anything on that. And the reason that I'm saying they're hypocrites is when you've got this agenda that the establishment Democrats want to push through, even then they're not all that serious about ending the filibuster. And the focus is going to be falsely placed on Chuck Schumer. Not because Chuck Schumer isn't bad. It's because it takes the focus off the system. It gets your average liberal thinking, oh, maybe it'll be different if we get a different Senate speaker than Chuck Schumer. No. That's the point about the hypocrisy that you see a lot from Democrats and their wishy-washy stances when it comes to passing their agenda. They always kick the can down the road to keep you voting for them. Then when they lose power, Republicans get more of their things done in comparison. And that's all by design. The filibuster does need to go. The problem is the establishment is going to misdirect your focus on it just being the wrong Democrats. Get you focused on the Joe Manchins, the Kristen Cinemas. If you noticed, there were 2 Democrats who didn't show up for that vote. Otherwise, you would have seen a 56-35 tally. They've always got a way to distract you from the system. And that's why I can't take them seriously on this, what's really just come down to being political theater on the January 6th. They need something to grab ratings. And when you look at CNN, they're down 77% since Joe Biden took over. I wonder if they regret or if they didn't like banning Trump from social media now. Because it seems like their coverage falls apart when they don't have that right-wing boogeyman to generate outrage. And they tried to make Marjorie Taylor Greene that person. And that just isn't going to work. And I hope that people continue to abandon the mainstream corporate media, join independent media like my show and several others, because we are going to give you, at least on independent left media, we're going to give you better perspective on these things. If you're following the right people, you're not going to see people come to defense of politicians, come to defense of corporations, or come to the defense of the police state. Me and others are here to advance things for the people. The other 99%. And the Democratic Party is just very unserious, because when they even need to get things done in their agenda that doesn't even do anything for the average person, they hide and cower under the same excuses that get used when they fail to follow through on promises that benefit the people more. And that's all I got to say about that for now. So last night, Joyanne Reid, the MSNBC host, made a tweet thread about how she believes all accusers. She starts off by tweeting about the accusers of Clarence Thomas, including Anita Hill, Sukari Hardnett, Moira Smith, and Christine Blasey Ford. She conveniently left a name out. Can you think of that name? It's obviously the one that affects a Democratic president's position of power. That would be Tara Reid. People endlessly brought up her name in the quote tweets, although I did see that Joyanne Reid, the hyper-partisan hack that she is, ignored all of those Tara Reid responses. This morning, Tara Reid trended again on Twitter. Part of it was us on the left bringing awareness again to the fact that Tara Reid still needs to be heard. She has a legitimate case against Joe Biden. And a couple articles smearing her about shit that has nothing to do with her case doesn't disprove her at all. And that's also brought out the shittiest of the shit lib takes on the Tara Reid out of the woodworks again. So I'm going to go scroll down to before I scroll down to the shit lip part, I'm going to bring up the image of the truth first. Thanks to Nick, Socialist MMA of the Fred Hampton Left, for posting this photo. In fact, they've got one of their biggest guests on the Fred Hampton Left tomorrow when Jimmy Dore joins them. Back to this graph. 1993, the first person Tara told about the sexual assault was her mother, who died in 2016. She also told her brother Colin Moulton. Mr. Biden walked down the hallway, Mrs. Reid said. She cleaned up in a restroom, made her way home, sobbing, and called her mother, who encouraged her to immediately file a police report. Her mother also called in to Larry King Live in 1993 for advice on the sexual assault. Former interns told reporters that Tara Reid was abruptly reassigned, confirming her account of reporting the sexual harassment. Although former interns did tell the Times and Post that Reid, who had been supervising, had abruptly been reassigned. The friend said Reid called her a few nights after the assault allegedly occurred, and the friend described in vivid detail feeling so physically sick at the disclosure that she ran to the bathroom and threw up in the middle of the conversation. Tara Reid told her friend about the sexual assault a few days later. Her friend has gone on the record and multiple interviews on the condition of anonymity. The point is, Tara Reid has been more consistent on telling her story than, say, Christy Blasey Ford. For the record, that doesn't mean I never didn't believe Blasey Ford. That just means that Tara Reid has been wrongly smeared as someone who doesn't have a genuine issue at hand right now. And that rhetoric has really won over a bunch of shitlibs. And here comes the set of tweets doing with more rape apologia. This first tweet comes from Sandy Nauer. Joe Biden could rape me in the middle of 5th Street, and I would still vote for him before I would vote for Trump or Sanders. Hashtag stop the stupid. Next is from a account with the display name Is This Real? False accusations are very rare. For acting like they are statistical zero is disingenuous. Remember, Emmett Till was lynched over a false allegation. Then the next one. From Un801 Original. At this point, I can only assume you have a rape fantasy involving Joe Biden. It's the only explanation as to why you keep harping on an easily debunked rape story. But hey, whatever knocks your socks off. I don't kink shame. Once again, they never debunked the rape story. All that they did was have corporate media come and cover for Joe Biden and essentially told Tara Reid to fuck off with the accusations and that we don't got time for this. And it's really wrong that the Me Too hypocrites get to pull the bullshit that it doesn't apply when it is blue. And this last photo comes from some random rally. The only white man who could tell me what to do with my body is Joe Biden. Then another sign. And it's honestly disappointing how there's women out there who feel like it's okay to let themselves be objectified by men in high power. Remember back when Donald Trump ran during the 2016 campaign, he had that grab her by the pussy audio that came out. He obviously downplayed the statements of that, but then you saw a woman at a future rally who wore a shirt, "Donald Trump can grab this pussy." And it's just hard to believe that there's women out there who are okay with being abused by men of power. But the worst part is still the people who come to the defense of these people in power and block and help play defense for these politicians. I'm consistent on the issue of Me Too. I don't care if it's red, blue, green, purple. I believe the woman, and I want her to have a proper hearing and case on this. And what's fucked up is how the DNC and the corporate media is blocking Tara Reid from a fair trial. You have to keep in mind that there's people out there overinflating the false accusations. Of the cases that get reported, there's only 4% of false accusations. But yet you've got celebrities like Mario Lopez who fearmonger over false accusations like they're the majority. And that type of rhetoric can't prevail. Don't forget, whenever liberals play whataboutism to Donald Trump, or now Matt Gaetz, that Joe Biden has 8 other women who came forward with accusations. So it's not just Tara Reid. There's 8 other women who need their cases heard as well. And that's not just... And Tara Reid is taking the brunt of the smear campaign for those other women as well. And it's unfortunate that even when we do get the hearings that they are supposed to, they still have to vote to remove them. And what we've seen is politicians protect each other. And that as a whole is another whole nother problem with the system. But for now, the issue is how they play a blockade and prevent women like Tara Reid from having proper justice being served. I believe Tara Reid, and she still needs to be heard. Lastly, just a small bit as I end the show. With the events that have happened in Israel and Palestine, it's been hard to feel good about what a lot of celebrities have done. You've had your fair share of pro-Israel celebrities, then the ones who initially make pro-Palestine statements eventually walk them back. But hopefully this will make you feel a bit better as we head out. Rage Against the Machine, Serge Tankian, Roger Waters, Run the Jewels, and Patti Smith are among 600 musicians who have signed an open letter asking fellow artists to boycott performing in Israel until there is a free Palestine. The letter also includes the Strokes' Julian Casablancas, The Roots' Black Thought and Questlove, Godspeed You, Black Emperor, Thurston Moore, Bun B, Royce the 5'9", Cypress Hill, Talib Kweli, and hundreds more. First off, I'd like to say I'm glad that there is a group of celebrities who are finally taking a stance. And even at this point, so I wonder what the response will be from this. But I feel like this is one of the first positive steps the celebrity class has made. And I honestly wish that we had more of this following Saudi Arabia after the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. But the truth was, it was really too small. So I think we've started to make more progress on having solidarity in issues like this with Israel and Palestine. And I hope this small means of leverage will lead to something. And with that being said, that's all for the Rochford Files this week. And I finally starting to get some guests lined up. On next Friday, I'll have Kamali Rose of the Radical Democracy Now! Show on. Then on Monday, June 7th, I'll have Sabby Sabs on the show. So I'm looking forward to both of those guest appearances that are upcoming. I'll still try to work on guest for Monday and Wednesday. But one of my goals of the show is to help platform Black leftists a lot and other people of color. I don't just want this show to be me yelling at a screen the whole time by myself. Even though I do try to do the best I can to advance their issues, it's obvious it will be better when I have them on, when I give them the platform to do it. As for tomorrow, probably a sports related stream tomorrow, 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern. I've got some guests in mind, and I'll be working on that after that. So please like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Search the Rochford Files on YouTube. Also, go to twitch.tv/the Rochford Files. Follow there. Follow me on Twitter at NuglifeComrade, NUGGLIF, then Comrade. Then don't forget to also follow the Rochford Files Show Twitter at A Rochford Files. And with that being said, hopefully y'all will have a good rest of your night. And I plan on being back tomorrow night, 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern, for some more NBA playoffs talk. This is Andrew Rochford signing off the Rochford Files.